So you just finished the entire Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and now you're left with what next? What can I get next? What will fill this gap, this hole in my heart after falling in love with Carl and Donut? And after reading the series or listening to the series, because the audiobooks were phenomenal too, but after the series, you're left thinking, what's next? Everything seems so pointless now that Carl and Donut aren't here anymore. And not to worry, I did see that Matt Dinniman did promise the series is going to go to 10 books. We just have to be patient and wait. But what can we do in the interim? What can we do while we are waiting, tick, 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 for our friends to come back? And hey, I am Helena. I'm a fantasy indie writer here in Toronto, Canada. And here on my channel, I talk about everything Dungeons and Dragons. I also talk about different RPGs as well. I talk about video games as well as my writing journey. So I hope you join the team and follow along. But let's jump in and discuss the big, huge dilemma. What do we do now without Donut? And Carl, of course. But Donut, oh. So what was it that really appealed to all of us who fell in love with the Dungeon Crawler Carl series? Well, I have to say for myself, what I really loved about it was the fact that the books kept on expanding where you could not predict what really came next. It was so exciting to see what was going to happen coming up. There was always that coming soon moment that left you on the edge. And we fell in love with the characters, and we fell in love with Carl. You know, he struggled so hard with being both the good guy and also becoming a little bit of the bad guy. We empathized with him. We understood and felt that we were right there with him, battling away, battling our own inner demons. Sometimes I found myself actually thinking, could I possibly follow the virtuous line that he did? I do find him virtuous compared to, many of the other characters, compared to, the whole universal aspect of things as well. But I have to say that the character development, we really got to know who each one of these characters were. We got to understand how they worked internally. And in doing so, we bought into their entire, saga and their struggles and their emotions. And it just kept us on that emotional roller coaster at all times. Now, I am a Dungeons and Dragons player. I am learning to become a game master myself. And what I liked about the books, though, was that it was entry level. That if you didn't understand what D&D really was, you weren't completely lost to what was going on. They did a good job of trying to kind of bring in the world of role-playing games, whether that's Magic the Gathering or whether that was D&D. They did bring an aspect of the introduction of that world to mainstream, literature. It really didn't go into the big mechanical depth of what character or campaign evolution can happen. Instead, it leaned into the emotional side of things, of making us feel that we were right there with them. And I will say that Dungeon Crawler Carl, I am an avid reader. I have been an avid reader my whole entire life. I've been writing since I was pretty much could hold a pen, I think. And I will say that Dungeon Crawler Carl really kind of brought me to a space where I haven't been in a book in a long time. And there's very few writers who kind of grasp me in that manner. I will say Andy Weir, it was very good for me personally as well with, The Martian as well as Hail Mary. I will also say that Dan Brown is one of those writers that really grabbed me as well. Completely different genres, completely different way of writing. But what I love is that their books, their concept are so well evolved that you don't feel that you're reading like a crappy version of the 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah, to me, the worst book that's ever been put out there. But hey, I mean, she's sold millions and millions of books as well as a movie, so who am I to judge at this point, okay? But whatever. And I'm going to give you kind of 9 recommendations. Now, caveat is, I have not read all of these yet. I am taking this as kind of a summary or a kind of wish to read for myself. These are books that I have put into my future read log that I diarize to purchase or borrow once I get caught up with the massive amounts of books that I have downstairs piled up for me to read. And I think if I brought home another book right now, my husband might just lose his mind a little bit. So yeah, I have to be kind of picky and choosy what comes in next at this point, though we really love this series together. All right, so book number 1 that I'm going to recommend, and this is in no particular order whatsoever. So the first book is He Who Fights with Monsters. Apparently, this is probably the most in line with the Dungeon Crawler Carl series for I need a book exactly like that to get another hit kind of moment. So the character wakes up in a fantasy world where stats and skills absolutely matter. And he's hilariously unprepared for this. It's apparently very smart and sarcastic and funny and completely weirdly relatable to the DCC fan group. He really is the protagonist who is just out there, who is trying to not lose his mind and kind of survive his situation. And kudos to him. This earned over 13 million views on Royal Road. Royal Road, if you don't know, is a place where aspiring authors can put their fantasy series online and have kind of early readers review their books. It's a place to go before traditional publishing, I guess you could say, to get kind of a market feel for your book. And it is a long series, just like Dungeon Crawler Carl is. And the first 3 books apparently are a little bit more lighthearted, and the plot deepens as you go on. And why this is number 1 on my list, because I guess, even though they're not in any order, but if I were to kind of pick up one next, just understand there's one on this list that I already have. But if there was one that I was going to pick up next on the list, it would be this one because of the fact that it is so similar to Dungeon Crawler Carl. And let's face it, if 13 million people loved it, it can't be anything wrong with that, right? Now for number 2. This book is designed for the person who loves a thick book, who loves to kind of get into the weeds, who loves the big in-depth moments of a really highly researched book. And this book is very much for the people who love world building. And that is The Primal Hunter by Zogarth. And what happens basically is a whole bunch of office workers are transported apparently into a multiverse where they go through a tutorial and everything starts evolving from there. And at first it sounds like a lighthearted progression fantasy series, but then it gets really into depth, where it goes through complex world building as well as psychological kind of manipulation and genuine philosophical questions. Many of his later books were rated significantly higher than the earlier ones. I think if you give the first couple books a chance, I think it becomes a really great series. And from what I understand, it is more heavy in the mechanics, meaning you're going to get into a little bit more of the D&D kind of playing structure in these books. But a person who loves a good book that brings you on a journey, has you figuring out puzzles, has you figuring out clues, has you solving things on an epic scale, this book will be for you. All right, book 3, or series 3 in this case. It is the Cradle series by Will White. And yes, this is not necessarily a LitRPG or an RPG literature type book. It is definitely, though, a fantasy book. And it's written kind of in the same DNA, in the same kind of, whether it's not progression RPG, I would call it kind of cultivation fantasy, in the sense that it has kind of Eastern mythology meets Western progression. And for a person who likes to get into a deep series, they want to invest the time into a good series of books, this one has girth. It has depth. It will absolutely scratch the itch of, I need another one. And from what I understand, the tone of the book is a little bit less humorous than, Dungeon Crawler Carl series could be. But if you like the aspect of not knowing what's coming next, apparently this is exactly in your DNA then. So my take on this one, it came up in pretty much every community that I researched. So I would have to say that it has to come on the list because of the fact that it does scratch the itch that a lot of people look for who do traditionally read the lit RPG kind of genre. So book number 4 is How to Become a Dark Lord and Die by Django Wexler. And apparently, if you like dark humor, this one has your name on it. If Donut was your favorite character in Dungeon Crawler Carl, you probably honestly will love this series. And it's about a guy who died and respawned in this fantasy world where he decides he's not going to be the good guy anymore. He's going to become the villain. And if you did not flinch from the dark stuff in Dungeon Crawler Carl, you might be able to kind of get through this one. I'll be honest, this one's a little on the edge for me. I am not the type of person who likes creepy and gory all that much. That being said, I am also okay with some of it. So, I don't know. I might explore this one. It might be something that I share with my husband because he loves the whole gory, scary, Resident Evil type stuff, whereas I don't. So this might be kind of an in-between for the two of us for us to explore together. And why this also came on my list was genuinely when I read it, the description that the guy dies and respawns and, decides not to be the good guy anymore, decides to be the villain instead. I kind of giggled at the premise of this. And yeah, I did kept reading about the fact that it was a little bit more dark. So it hit my list because it hit genuine intrigue on how this would play out. Book number 5 is Defiance of the Fall by J.F. Brink. And the premise of the book is that the whole world all of a sudden is introduced to a multiverse that is run by a massive conglomerate. And he finds himself alone in the wilderness against beasts with nothing but pretty much a hatchet. And it's his journey on kind of going through this world. Now, I'll be honest, this is best suited for the person who loves epic world building and also loves that power dynamic, that power progression. They want to be able to see how things fold out and how people kind of grow within that environment. It really doesn't give you that whole kind of character depth that you got with Dungeon Crawler Carl. So you're probably not going to fall in love with a whole bunch of characters. And if that's what you're looking for, this is not going to be the book for you, for sure. But if you absolutely love that whole survival and exploring and building and power, this book will 100% be for you. And why this hit my list, even though this is not necessarily one that's going to the top of my reading pile, I will say that there was over 20 million people who gave this rave reviews. So again, if you have 20 million people on Royal Road who tend to be a very kind of evolved fantasy group, if they really like the book, then there must be some clout to it. So it made my list. I'm sharing it here just in case this is the world that you loved about Dungeon Crawler Carl. Now, book number 6 genuinely has me so curious. I really want to put this one on the top of my list, and that is The Wandering Inn by Piratiba. I really hope Piratiba, that's how you pronounce your name. I'm sorry if I butchered it beyond existence. But basically, this is about a young woman who is teleported into a fantasy world. And instead of her becoming a hero, like everyone assumes that they would, she decides to open an inn instead. And she has the entire world come to her. And when I was researching this book, I saw the word literary crack. I couldn't put this crack down. Oh my gosh, this book is serious crack. So apparently, it is so good that people could not put it down, that they just wanted to hook that shit up in their veins and get more of it. And yes, I do curse on this channel, not a whole lot, but I am going to be who I am. Now, here is the but. The only thing that I saw negative really about this is the fact that once you get into this series, it is a serious commitment. The books are long. The books have girth. The books are deep. They give. They 100% give. But in return, you are going to probably have the experience that many of the readers or the reviewers did for this book and say that it is their favorite book of a lifetime. Now, that is a huge accomplishment. I really don't know if I have a book that I could say was my favorite book of my entire lifetime. But if you have serious readers who have claimed this, it has to be good. It has to be phenomenal. So my take is that I'm genuinely interested, but I'm also very intimidated because time is a commodity in my world, and investing time into a series that is already being said that it is monstrously long, I'm kind of worried about this one, but I'm excited at the same time. All right, book number 7. And this is Beware the Chicken by Casual Farmer. And this book made my list because if you finished Dungeon Crawler Carl and you genuinely needed some air, you needed to come up for air, you needed some lightheartedness, you needed to kind of have something a little bit different, similar but different, this book 100% is that. And the premise of the book is that our hero decides he is done with fighting, and he decides to move to the countryside, raise some chickens and some spirit herbs. And of course, trouble finds him along the way. Apparently, it's very lighthearted and peaceful and humorous and warm and cozy. And apparently, it's like Carl decided to retire from fighting and open a farm instead of clearing out another floor. And yes, it is a cozy lit RPG, and it seems like a contradiction that how could something so mellow and gentle and sweet and warm and inviting be part of it? But apparently readers swear by it because of the absurdity of everything that's in it. So instead of the darkness, you get the lighthearted side of everything with a little bit of crazy mayhem as well. And my take on this one, why it made my list, well, with just the fact that it sounded a little odd. You're raising chickens and, spirit herbs and retiring, and it's a lit RPG. So it's kind of an oxymoron type of thing for me. That had some genuine interest for me. And then just reading what everyone else said about it, it genuinely sounds so nice, warm, and cozy. I feel like I should put a blanket on and make a hot cocoa or a nice cup of coffee and cozy up with this book. So yeah, I do think that this is something that, kind of will help me defrag my brain once I am completely done with my list that I have right now. And book number 8 is Dungeonborn by Dakota Kraut. And the premise of this book is that it is from the dungeon's perspective, actually, and it's people trying to survive them. And it's legitimately the dungeon watching people go through. So there are some dark humor components, but really what it is that the dungeon's doing what the dungeon just does. And there is a lot of death that goes associated to that. But apparently it is a little bit lighter than Dungeon Crawler Carl, believe it or not. And if I put this into kind of real life perspective for anyone who is curious about Dungeons and Dragons, this would be the dungeon masters or the game masters kind of perspective when they're running a game. this is what kind of they see from that angle. And my take on this is, because I'm a dungeon master or game master in training, or DM or GM, whatever way you want to call it, because I'm in the process of learning to do this, I really want to kind of read this book because it will give me insight as to what that perspective will look like, I guess. And bottom line is that I love a good story where somebody has kind of flipped things on its head. I'll be honest, I would never think of writing a book from the dungeon's perspective, but I think that's very clever. I like clever. So I'm going to give this one a try for sure. Now, number 9 on the list, this is one that I'm actually going through right now. It is one that I have genuinely started reading already. And that is We Are Legion, We Are Bob. It's a Bobbyverse series by Dennis E. Taylor. And even though that this is not a lit RPG per se, it is a fantasy genre. And the premise of the book is that Bob dies and his brain is scanned into an AI that is aboard a spaceship. And he's tasked with exploring the universe. And yes, it's not your traditional kind of fantasy or fantasy lit RPG type book. It is more on the sci-fi side of things. But I was told that it's very, very similar in tone, in story, in plot development as Dungeon Crawler Carl. So apparently there is some dry sense of humor in there. There is a lot of absurdities. There is some darkness in there and some genuine high stakes, just like Dungeon Crawler Carl. And apparently it's not going to land for everyone. I am enjoying it so far. And my take is, personally, why I'm liking it is the fact that there is a lot of character evolution. There's a lot of in-depth character building in this book. And if you love a working class person like I do, who is just trying to make it in a new skin, this book is going to be for you. And why it made my list and why I started reading it was because I'm the person who does like to move between sci-fi and fantasy. And then I'll throw in, a real life person kind of book in there, something like Dan Brown once in a while. But the fact that so many people did say that it had the same type of vibe as DCC, that's why it did make my list. And I will be 100% honest, the fact that I also write in both sci-fi and fantasy. The book that I have published leans into more of a YA, dystopian, thriller, sci-fi fantasy type of thing. The series that I am writing, The Hollow Chronicles now, 100% goes into the fantasy genre. It goes into that lit RPG genre, for sure. What Matt Dinniman did was that he solved a lot of the problems that a lot of fantasy writers are still trying to figure out. They're trying to figure out how to get a character so loved that people would follow them into the dark places, into the bad places, into the sad places, into the funny places, and the warm spaces as well. And at times I was watching Carl as if he was my son, where I was following him into completely dangerous positions and I just wanted to save him. And the fact that my son, in this kind of sense, also loves his cat so much that he brings his cat along and makes her thrive in this environment as well. Come on, what's not to love? How can we say we don't love a hero like this? And the fact that Matt Dinniman has got a TV contract or a movie contract, I think it's TV contract coming up. He's in negotiations. It is testament that the regular population fell in love with Carl, fell in love with Donut, fell in love with all of the characters in the book. And I cannot wait for his series to come out on TV. I am one of those people who loves the book, who loves the audiobook, and who also loves the TV or movie version of it as well. I appreciate them all for their artistic or their creative component of where it kind of lives. And if you're a person who is curious about Dungeons and Dragons, or you're a person who is a seasoned player, or you are genuinely into the whole sci-fi and fantasy and lit RPG genre, or if you are an aspiring author yourself, or maybe an author who already is published and just wants to find some community, I encourage you, regardless of where you fit on that spectrum, to follow along. And I know YouTube is just about to suggest your next related video that's suitable for you, so I hope to see you back. I hope you join the team, and I thank you so much for being here and staying right to the end. Just understand, as a small new channel, I really do appreciate you. Thanks for being here.